Running a business comes with a lot of what ifs, but luckily there's a simple answer to them. Shopify. It's the commerce platform behind millions of businesses, including Thrive Cosmetics and Momofuku, and it'll help you with everything you need. From website design and marketing to boosting sales and expanding operations, Shopify can get the job done and make your dream a reality. Turn those what ifs into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
It's The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
Speaking of incredible, I am very pleased to be joined by a gentleman who has an incredible story. He also has a fair amount of opinions about what's going on in the world at large. Kevin Shipp is a decorated CIA whistleblower, an espionage investigator, and an author whose new book has gotten a lot of attention. It's called Twilight of the Shadow Government: How Transparency Will Kill the Deep State. Kevin, thanks so much for joining me on the radio.
Thanks for having me.
Kevin, let's give folks a little bit of background as to your story, because it's an interesting one. You were a CIA veteran with over 20 years experience, access to the highest level of intelligence operation. You led counterterrorism operations worldwide. You protected the CIA director, a whole bunch of other high-value defectors as well. And then what happened? What became of your CIA career?
I was doing an investigation into CIA cover operations in U.S. embassies and the computer connections and how the data was set up in those centers. And during my investigation, I uncovered the fact that in any embassy, at least it appeared initially, and in any embassy across the world, anyone could go into the open visa section to the unclassified computers and easily go in there and search through and find the names and in many cases the addresses of our case officers, chief of station, and by extension, their assets. So I continued and did a thorough investigation, and the more I looked into it, the worse it got. So I contacted the office responsible for cover in embassies and for our covert officers overseas, and told him, I said, listen, I think I found this vulnerability here. It looks like it exists. I think you need to see this. This was the chief of that division. So they said, yeah, go ahead and send it over. So I sent it over via internal mail to the cover division, called them a week later, and they said, I said, have you had a chance to read my report? The response was, what report? I said, okay, I'll send it to you again. Put it in internal CI mail, sent it again, called a week later. Okay, did the chief get a chance to see my report? Once again, what report? Anyway, to make a long story short, the report was destroyed 3 times. It was erased from the headquarters server. And then I got a menacing call from the chief GS-15 CI officer, the chief of that cover division, ordering me to drop the investigation immediately. And if I didn't, it would be my career. And then he hangs up. So I was like, what in the world is going on here? This could be pretty serious. They were blocking every attempt for me to get this information to the right parties in upper management so it could be corrected. Well, the investigation, since they were destroying my memos and removing it from the server, someone leaked my investigation to the Department of State Inspector General. And I got a call on the secure line one day. Hey, Kevin, this is, excuse me, Jim so-and-so, Department of State IG. We were given a copy of your report. And turns out it was from a senior officer in the agency that thought it was serious. And he said, listen, we think that there's something here. This could be potentially serious. Do not tell the CIA we're doing an investigation. Do not tell the CIA that you're involved. Keep your head low. We're going to travel around the world and investigate this. We'll probably be back in about 3 months. Sure enough, 3 months later, I get a call on the secure line. It's Jim. He goes, Kevin, we finished our investigation, and it's not just as bad as you thought. It is worse. Could you report to Maine State this Friday? We've got a very important meeting. I said, yes, sir. So I'll be there. that Friday rolled around. I went to Main State up to the investigations group. They buzzed me in the door, took me into a big conference room. I sat on one side of this long walnut table, Jim on the other, and the two IG guys at the end. And the senior IG officer said, "Okay, Kev, give us about 10 minutes because the CIA will be joining us." And I was like, I didn't even know the CIA knew about it yet. So sure enough, the door buzzed. In walked this GS-15 in the office that had destroyed my memos, erased it from the server, and had threatened me. The IG said, "Please sit down at the other end of the table." And he was like, "Well, what's this about?" He said, "Well, we'll get to that." So he sat down, and the IG officer stood up and said, consider this an official rebuke by the Department of State Inspector General to you, the CIA, for putting the lives of your cover officers at risk for over 10 years and then covering it up. We want you to understand that a report is being sent out to the entire intelligence community about what you've done and the fact that you covered this up. Well, I remember he just froze, and the blood drained from his face. He stumbled over his words, and then the IG officer said, "That will be all. You can go." He gets up, obviously in shock, walks out the door. I stayed back for some small talk, and they thanked me for my report, and went back to CI headquarters. I'll never forget. I was walking through the main hallway in CI headquarters. Figuratively speaking, it felt like I had a laser dot on my back. I had just done a secret investigation against the CI without their knowledge, and they were now just embarrassed before the entire intelligence community, probably for the first time in a decade or two or more. So I knew that they were going to come after me, and I was prepared. I didn't know exactly how. My next assignment, I was sent over to a war zone in a Muslim country. I was collecting human intelligence, and the station. I was training in tactical firearms. Some of the foreigners there. The station put a new student in the class, and the fellow was about 6'2", blonde haired, blue eyes. Some Muslims look like that. And they put him in my class. And so I was teaching these folks tactical firearms, including him. And this fella was too good. He could hit a wine bottle at about 30 yards with a pistol. And which I thought, started thinking, who is this guy? So doing my job, I started collecting information on him. And he and I went out to dinner several times. Anyway, turns out this fellow was a high-level Iranian assassin sent to assassinate the head of that country and Americans. And he and I would stand up there in the mountains in this remote area, shooting guns right next to each other. And this guy was an assassin. Well, I found out that the cover division, the office that was rebuked by Department of State, did not put me under cover. They left me as an open CIA employee when I went over deep in this country to do this training. So I'm standing next to an Iranian assassin. I have not been given my cover. It had been removed. And why the guy didn't just turn around and blow my brains out, I don't know. We went out to several dinners and kind of started hitting it off. I guess I wasn't his typical American, talking about our children and things. And anyway, he never took the shot. So that was the first thing. I came back just kind of stunned by that. Then I was assigned to a secret base within the United States, and they ordered me to move into a house on this base with my family. And it was the house, they knew the house was contaminated. The family that was there before us were desperately ill, and they evacuated them out of there. So the CIA put us in a house that was badly contaminated with toxins. There was mycotoxins on the ceiling, which is a neurotoxin. Saddam Hussein used that in Iraq against U.S. troops. It was called yellow rain. So there were mycotoxins in the house. There was black mold all through the walls. Mustard shells were percolating up in the yard. And our family got deathly ill, terminal almost in my son's case. Anyway, so long story short, I tried to get Office of Medical Services out there to test the house. They refused. I tried to get medical help from my family. They refused. They ordered me not to tell anybody about what was happening. Finally, I contacted the CIA CIA IG and requested help. I was given a fake number and a fake name. The person didn't exist. I found out later from one of the IG staffers that George Tenet, the DCI, and his executive officer Alvin Buzzy Krongard had been ordered the CIIG to erase me
Wow.
as an employee and destroy my career.
My goodness.
Because of the investigation I had done.
That's incredible. At 36 minutes after the hour, this is The Other Side of Midnight. We've been talking with Kevin Shipp. Kevin, such a fascinating story. I wish we had a whole hour just to spend on that. And then, I'd love to spend another hour just following up on what you said kind of anecdotally about Saddam Hussein and using the mycotoxin against U.S. troops. But I want to pick your brain on some other items in the news, and then you'll come back, hopefully, and we'll be able to delve into that in the future.
Certainly.
Let me ask you first about Tulsi Gabbard. I'm, in the interest of full disclosure, I'm a Tulsi Gabbard fan. I have been for a long time. And I am really hoping that she gets confirmed as Director of National Intelligence. There seem to be a lot of folks on both sides of the aisle that take issue with her qualifications to be the Director of National Intelligence. And a lot of the things that she's done and said seem to be at odds with the mainstream of the intelligence community. I don't need to go through the whole list, but a lot of people not crazy about her meeting with Assad. A lot of people not crazy about her refusal to repudiate Edward Snowden as a traitor. A lot of people not happy with her opposition historically to certain aspects of FISA and warrantless wiretapping, namely Section 702. I'm curious what you think of the Tulsi Gabbard nomination for Director of National Intelligence, and I'm curious if you'd like to see her confirmed.
I would. I think she's a woman of tremendous integrity and served our country well overseas in war zones. She's definitely good for the job, and it's clear, and I predicted this as others did. I call it the shadow government, the CIA network. They despise her. She questions their power and their authority. The CIA had put out a hit on Assange, if you remember, to assassinate him.
Right, under Pompeo. Yeah.
That's under Mike Pompeo, right? And then they put Tulsi Gabbard on a terrorist watch list when she tried to fly within the United States. She was saying that Snowden essentially was a hero, revealing that the U.S. was domestically spying on all of us, and all of those things we all agree with. We agree with her getting in there and cleaning house and stopping this domestic surveillance on Americans. Edward Snowden, many of us think, was a hero. So she's speaking what most of us would like to see in a person that would be in her position. So I'm behind her 100%. I'm hoping that she gets in because she's smart, she's courageous, and I think she's a good pick.
What do you think the likelihood is that she does get confirmed?
It's a little tough right now. They're really pounding on her about the Snowden thing because the shadow government, deep state, Snowden is an anathema because, he crossed every red line that they had, so much so that, as we just talked about, they tried to kill him. So she's having a difficult time with that one. The visit to Syria is not as bad as that one, but some of these people on this committee look at her as an enemy of intelligence based on her support, or at least public support, of Edward Snowden. And that's a real sticking point that she's going to have to overcome. And so it's going to be a little dicey. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's difficult to imagine 10 years ago that when Tulsi was a Democrat and Rubio was a rising star in Republican politics, that Rubio would get confirmed with support of every Democratic senator and Tulsi Gabbard wouldn't get the support of a single Democratic senator. It just goes to show you how far things have come in a short amount of time.
That's right.
If folks are just tuning in, this is The Other Side of Midnight. I'm Frank Morano. My guest is Kevin Shipp. His book is Twilight of the Shadow Government, How Transparency Will Kill the Deep State. Kevin, there was a lot of news in the last week or so about the JFK files. President Trump signed an executive order to order the agencies to sort of review where things are with the JFK, MLK, and RFK assassination documents and begin the process of seeing what, if anything, can be declassified. Some people are saying that this is more window dressing than anything else. What's your view? How significant of a move is this? And part of my question also is, why has the intelligence community worked so hard to keep these files from coming forward for so many years?
Well, I do think it's window dressing, and it's what the CIA does withholding documents from Congress. They believe their power is above Congress, and that excuse me, that is not an understatement. And we have to remember one thing. The documents that existed when the CIA, and I think it's pretty clear, Bobby Kennedy Jr. and I are on the same page on this, that the CIA was involved in the assassination of John F. Kennedy. But after the assassination and after the murder, you can be sure that the CIA destroyed every single document that connected it to that operation. Excuse me. So a good example of that is when MK Ultra was revealed during the Church Committee. CI Director Richard Helms immediately destroyed 10,000 documents of MK Ultra before they could reach the committee and anybody could see them. So, do people think that the CI murdered a sitting president and then stored the files down in the basement of the CIA somewhere? No, those files are gone. They were destroyed immediately. What?
Yeah, which leads me to be even more curious about what they're fighting so hard to keep from coming to the public. I don't imagine there's a locked drawer somewhere that says, the real killer is Joe Blow.
Right. I think that they're afraid of releasing anything, and some of the documents in the past that have been released were redacted. Things were blacked out. The CIA is basically a cult of secrecy, and that's how they think. That's how they function. They're not going to give Congress anything unless they're pushed into a corner, and that's the same in this case. They may be worried that there may be a couple of little snippets in all these documents that could point in that direction. I'll give you an example. There was a CIA officer in Japan down in the finance section going through some of the old payment stubs and payment systems, and he found payment receipts for a 201 file for Lee Harvey Oswald. Now, a 201 file is payment for a CIA asset, proved that Lee Harvey Oswald was a CIA employee. Just that one little thing that the CIA missed that was over in Japan in the archives. So they may be worried that there's a little nugget or tidbit in there somewhere. But the nature of the CIA is not release anything. That is their nature. That's what they do. They tried to black out most of my second book. It's the nature of that beast, and they're going to have to be forced to release that stuff.
My cat Freddie loves to be brushed and cuddled. But stirring up his cat allergens meant sneezing and itchy eyes. Then I found Purina One Live Clear. It's cat food that reduced the major allergen and my suffering in as little as 21 days. Now, we feel closer than ever. If you have issues with cat allergens, you really need to try Purina One Live Clear.
Try new Purina One Live Clear today. Purina One, a difference from day one.
Here at the Almond Joy Factory, where tropical vibes abound, we use soft, fresh-tasting coconut.
The crunchiest almonds and delicious chocolate candy.
Ah, but do you know what our most important ingredient is? Sometimes you feel like a nut.
Sometimes you don't.
Almond Joy's got nuts and something even way better than that. Yes, Almond Joy is made with almonds and joy.
This episode is brought to you by Principles. Are there limits to the U.S. government's debt growth? What will happen if the debts are not curtailed? What should policymakers or investors do? Those are urgent questions that legendary investor and New York Times bestselling author Ray Dalio addresses in his new book, How Countries Go Broke: The Big Cycle. The book comes out in June and is available for pre-order today, wherever books are sold.
Of course you love a pint of Ben & Jerry's, but maybe you don't love sharing your pint of Ben & Jerry's. No problem. Now you can share the love with Ben & Jerry's new Scoop-A-Palooza. 28 whole ounces of crowd-pleasing flavor in a single tub. It's an instant ice cream party. And if that means your favorite pint is left just for you, so be it. Ben & Jerry's new 28-ounce Scoop-A-Palooza. Made for sharing in 4 larger-than-life flavors. See benjerry.com/palooza.
All right, let's talk about these drones that got so much attention a couple of months ago, especially in New Jersey, but really all over the country. Even the former governor of Maryland talked about one of these drones above his house. Then President Trump, before he had taken office, basically said the government knows what these things are, and if they don't, they ought to shoot one down and find out. But he reiterated publicly that he thought the government knew what they were. Then he comes into office, and his press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, gives this to the public on the drone front.
I do have news directly from the President of the United States that was just shared with me in the Oval Office. From President Trump directly, an update on the New Jersey drones. After research and study, the drones that were flying over New Jersey in large numbers were authorized to be flown by the FAA for research and various other reasons. Many of these drones were also hobbyists, recreational, and private individuals that enjoy flying drones. In time, it got worse due to curiosity. This was not the enemy.
I found that to be such a peculiar statement, especially given how adamant Trump was prior to going into office that, the government knows what they are and they should shoot them down. But for her to characterize it, one, for her to be the person delivering this instead of the president, I thought was interesting. But then for her to characterize it as research without indicating what kind of research it was, and then saying, and for other purposes, without indicating what the other purposes were, it sort of made me, and I think a lot of other people, even more suspicious about what the deal was with these drones. What do you think of these drones, Kevin, and what did you make of what Caroline Leavitt said there?
Yeah, Frank, I was a little concerned by that statement. You remember the Pentagon initially denied it completely and said, "Oh, they're just a small aircraft or hobbyists," and on and on. They wouldn't even admit its existence. Then the Biden administration wouldn't say what they were, and that's why Trump said he was going to come out and tell everyone, "Well, yeah, we got an answer, but Frank, it's a non-answer." So we know now that they're government drones, they're FAA approved, but they're doing research and various other things. That's not an answer. This leads back to what I've said on other programs. There is a highly classified covert drone program the CIA has been running for years, and especially out of Area 51. Some of the technology would blow people's minds regarding some of these aircraft and what they can do. And I think Trump was briefed on the classification level of this stuff and could not release it, and basically came out with a non-answer. We weren't told anything. What's the research? What are these various other purposes? What a broad statement. So that was not an answer.
Do you have a theory as to what these drones were or are?
Yeah, some of these drones are equipped with sniffers that can pick up radiation, chemical weapons, biological weapons, and other things. And just my logical progression was these things were sniffing for something. And if you noticed recently in the news, the FBI just issued an alert and exercises for a possible nuclear attack. These alerts and training practice in New York City. Another expert on China, came out and said that they picked up radiation on both sides of the Hudson River. So just putting all these little tiny pieces of the puzzle together, I would conjecture that they're sniffing for something, and they don't want to tell the American people or a foreign entity the technology that they have, and or they don't want the American people to panic if they are indeed picking up radiation somewhere. And that's the only thing that I can find that can explain this whole thing.
Final question, Kevin, and you got to come back. I've really enjoyed this exchange, and there's a ton of other stuff that I'd love to get into with you in the future.
Sure.
But made news over the weekend that John Brennan, John Bolton, James Clapper, the former CIA head, the former national security advisor, the former director of national intelligence, and 47 other former intelligence officials have been banned from entering U.S. government facilities due to national security concerns. That's according to Reuters. Now, some of the president's critics will say, all right, that's clearly just Trump being Trump. It's sour grapes. He doesn't like these guys. He doesn't like that they were critical of him. Now this is his way of getting even with them. I tell you, I was quite impressed with Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, who I don't usually see eye to eye with, a Democrat of Minnesota, who said in response to that prohibition from Brennan, Bolton, Clapper, and the others, I hope this list grows and the revolving door closes for good. I couldn't have said it any better myself. What was your reaction to the banning of these people from stepping on government property going forward?
Well, I was popping champagne corks. These are the face of the shadow government deep state. These guys. Remember, it was John Brennan who instigated the Russia collusion hoax and leaked false information to the media, called it intelligence that Trump was interacting with the Russians. Amongst other things that Brennan did, he made secret trips into Ukraine and helped stage that coup against a democratically elected government in 2014. Then you got James Clapper, who lied to Congress about NSA surveillance of the American people. And you got these other 42 that denied that or tried to make the claim that Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation when they knew darn well it wasn't. So these are the faces of the shadow government deep state. And I think what Trump did is so encouraging. And it really, really encouraged me that perhaps he will dig down into the shadow government deep state and start doing some house cleansing, which this is, it seems.
We will see what happens. Kevin Shipp, appreciate the time. Let's talk again.
You got it, Frank. Thank you, man.
Thank you. If people want to contribute, by the way, to Kevin Shipp's GoFundMe for his legal issues, you can find him on Twitter. It's just Kevin _ and then Shipp with SHIPP, 2 P's. And he's got a lot of legal bills from what he was referring to earlier. And you could find his GoFundMe on his Twitter account. It's one of the links there. If you want to comment on any portion of our discussion, feel free to do so. 646-720-0635. That's 646-720-0635. Your calls and UFO report straight ahead.